I'll introduce myself. Meghna ji looks after our sales. She'll be taking the interview, right? So I just wanted to congratulate you for being the first hardware wallet company in India. So you're doing a good job. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys, and I feel you guys are doing a tremendous job as well, educating the people about the space because I
Oh,
think that
thank you.
needed more than ever.
Yeah, exactly. So, so obviously, I am in the call, listening to everything, and I love to hear your story. Just a quick 2 minutes, 2 minute conversation I wanted to have with you personally is as a see, I've been into blockchain for the past. It's been 2017, so it's been 5 years since I've been studying blockchain, Ethereum, and all that. So I'm I'm one of the reasons as a public as one of the reasons we are drifting or we want to change the direction towards anything and everything Web3. So our training program, we're right now introducing a course on metaverse. We've already introduced. We have trained over 150 students on blockchain, more than 150 in fact in the past year. And our target is to train around 10,000 to 15,000 students, right? Um, so it is exciting because blockchain is just growing. Obviously, it's a bear market right now. So for the next in the next 2 years, things are really going to ramp up. In the next bull run, people will be really gung ho. So we want to be prepared for that. So quickly, my question is for this Cypherock. Have you raised some funds or how is it? Is it self funded or if you can tell me about that before Meghna starts the.
Yeah, I mean, we are already funded by some investors outside India. I mean, most of them
Okay.
are outside India. We just haven't publicly announced that as of yet.
Okay. I would love to see. I would love to see if you want some more. We would like to be a part of this because it's made in India. Plus, I feel that the market for hardware wallets is just beginning right now. As things get more toughened by the government, more and more people would like to use the hardware wallet.
So, would like to know some brief introduction about Cypherrock, what it does, its history, and how did it conceptualize? If you can give us information on that.
Sure. So, just to paint a little context behind, before Cypherock, traditionally in, the Web2 space, you have passwords and usernames. That's how you sort of log into a specific website or application for that matter. In Web3, things are completely different because the user is sort of in control of how the authentication is going to happen. And it happens through something called as public keys and private keys, right? And in Web3, like the security about this private key is of utmost importance because if you lose it, you will not be able to access your account again. Or if someone sort of gets access to this private key, they might be able to transfer the digital assets that you used to control out from your account into their account. And because the networks in Web3 are by default pseudo-anonymous, so you won't be able to prove in court that, okay, this was the person who stole my private keys. And so to protect against, like the loss and theft problem in the space, you need essentially like a secure wallet which sort of stores this private key associated with your digital assets. And your digital assets could be a Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other cryptocurrencies for that matter. So we essentially what are doing is we are sort of building the world's safest Web3 wallet, which allows you to secure this private key in the best possible way without the risk of the loss and theft. So like the easiest example I usually give is like gold, right? So with gold, you can keep it in a bank locker and they are going to be responsible for keeping it safe. But the thing is, in most cases, the bank doesn't give you insurance over the gold that you store with them. And so most of the people, what they end up doing is they start keeping it with themselves, right? In their homes, in a secret hideout, whatever, right? That's usually how most of the people in India keep their gold. Similarly, with cryptocurrencies, there's one way where you can sort of store your cryptocurrencies with someone else. In this regard, the examples are, all of the different crypto exchanges that sort of exist today, or you can keep it with yourself, right? By self, I mean self-custody those private keys for that asset. So as long as your private keys are securely stored with you, no one else in the world has the power to take those cryptocurrencies or your digital assets away from you. So essentially, we are sort of building a secure infrastructure to help the users, enable them to sort of have a secure infrastructure for securing these digital assets with themselves. So that's pretty much more or less about what we are building. We have been building this since the past 3 years. Uh, we initially started off our journey as engineers. So both me and my co-founders, we are engineers from the Delhi College of Engineering. It's now called as Delhi Technological University. A co-founder of, like, the founder of Paytm, Vijay Shekhar Sharma is also like one of our alumni. Both engineers by trade. We started trading, investing around 2017, still in college, by the way, because that was a time when crypto was just sort of taking off with the crazy prices. And it was like very fascinating for us to see why something which is purely digital rising so much in value. Because people usually didn't find value in anything digital before, majorly. People always found physical things to have value. Hard cash, you have cash in the bank account, gold. Like, usually people before cryptocurrency arrived to the scene, they used to think that, okay, only physical assets generally have value. But that's something, cryptocurrencies and digital assets sort of changed about. So we made a bunch of money at that time during the bull run of 2017, but then 2018 arrived when the crypto market crashed by more than 90%. And we were like, we thought, we realized that everyone is sort of a genius in a bull market. It's when a bear market hits that you realize, you're not a genius. It's just the market doing its job. And so we thought, it's much better to work on the technology aspect of things rather than speculating on these assets that we basically have no control over. And so me and my co-founders, I'm more from the software background. He's more from the hardware and the security background. We said, what are some of the unique problems that we could explore in the space that we as individuals can uniquely solve that others might find it difficult to solve for, because of our unique skill sets that we have. And we realized, like, self-custody is a very important aspect of the digital asset space. And the reason why I say so is because if you consider today's environment, most of the mind share is sort of captured by the crypto exchanges today. And what we realized was, if that trend is going to continue, what would end up happening is these cryptocurrency exchanges will again have the same set of banking regulations that the current traditional finance has, the traditional banking system has. And by the way, it has already started happening, both in the US and India. And so if that continues to happen, like the Web3 or the new financial system that is being promised through blockchain will never actually like fulfill the promise that it's sort of portrayed in the first hand, because it will have the same set of regulations that the banking industry has in the crypto space, and it will not be sort of too much indifferent than what we already have today. And so what we realized was self-custody is something which is very differentiated, what Web3 sort of is offering today to its users compared to the traditional finance. And so we realized that self-custody needs to sort of scale up for the masses, for Web3 to actually succeed. That was sort of our realization. And so once we sort of started going deeper into the space, we realized there were very sort of fundamental issues that sort of existed around self-custody solution that existed at a time, which were catalyzing this effect of people not jumping, or more people not jumping into cryptocurrencies per se, or digital assets in general. And so some of the few problems we realized was that all of the wallets that exist today, even at that point, were sort of hackable. Even the most secure, or the wallets that are sort of considered most secure today have been hacked before.
So how is your design unique then?
Right. So let's go more into the technical side of things then. So if you see how the wallet works, it basically has this private key, which is used to authorize a transaction by the user, right? And so all of the wallets, what they do today is they take that private key and store it inside the wallet. Now that wallet could be on your desktop, it could be on your smartphone, or it could be a dedicated hardware device, which is purposefully built around securing that private key, right? But here's the problem. As I said, like from first principles, nothing in the world is 100% secure. That can never happen. And so if your desktop is hacked, or if your smartphone is hacked, or if your hardware is hacked, your private key is also compromised, and hence your funds are compromised as well, right? So that was the first problem. What we did differently was, everyone sort of stored this private key centralized inside the wallet. What we thought was, what if we took this private key and sort of decentralized this private key also into 5 parts? So I don't know if you heard about, or maybe even like read about Harry Potter in general, like how sort of Voldemort in the story sort of splits his soul into
Yeah.
different pieces, so that it's very difficult for Harry to sort of destroy him until unless he finds sort of all of the
All
pieces
the,
here. Exactly. So very
yeah.
similar, not exact same concept, very similar in that sense. So what we take the private key, we sort of decentralize it into 5 parts. All of those 5 parts are stored in tamper-proof hardware. So these are like sort of the cards, and this is the device. So you basically get one device and 4 of these cards, which you sort of distribute into remote location. So maybe keep the device and the card in your home, and the rest of the 3 cards maybe to your parents, your friend, or maybe in a bank locker. So basically distribute them. But here's the magical part. So whenever you want to make a transaction, you don't need to fetch all of these 5 parts. You just need to fetch the device and any one of the card to make a transaction. So what that means is, you don't need to fetch all of it. Even if you lost maybe 3 of the cards, you still have the one card and the device to recover back your assets. Or if you lost this device and any maybe 2 of these cards, your funds are still recoverable from the remaining 2 cards that are still there. So that's how we have sort of designed it. Even if you only have to secure any 2 out of these 5 things at any given point in time for your funds to be recoverable. And so the way it solves the loss problem is, even if you lost 3 out of these 5 things, your funds are still recoverable. And the way it solves the theft problem is, even if someone manages to hack this device, it is theoretically impossible for you to lose your assets. For the hacker to compromise your funds, they'll have to first find the locations of at least one of the card and the device, and then hack through the pin, beyond which it is, before which it is not possible to hack your assets. So that's how sort of we designed it. That's sort of the first problem we solved. The second problem we solved was of something called a seed phrase in Web3. So what do you mean by seed phrase? So seed phrase is essentially a backup of your wallet. So think of it like this. Let's assume you use any wallet today, maybe something like MetaMask, Ledger, or any other Web3 wallet today. The thing is, your desktop could get corrupted, your smartphone could get lost, it could get corrupted, or maybe the hardware device that you bought as a wallet, what if that gets corrupted or you lost it, let's assume, for that matter. So you need to have a backup of your private key somewhere, right? Otherwise, your funds will be lost forever, right? Because there's no
Right.
sort of forget password button in Web3. In Web2 is like, you have this forget password button. If you lose your password or you forget your
You can
password,
recover it.
you can recover it. You click forget password, they'll send you a link to your email. That's how you sort of recover the account for your Facebook, Google, whatever for that matter. But there's no forget password button in Web3 because everything is sort of decentralized. It's the user who is sort of control of their own digital assets, right? And so what tends to happen is, you write down this backup of your wallet, which is technically called a seed phrase, on a piece of paper. Now think of it like this. Even if your wallet is secure, but if your seed phrase, which you have literally written down on a piece of paper, is not secure, your funds are even more compromisable now. Because as a hacker, even if I don't manage to hack your wallet, but if I manage to find this piece of
Piece
paper,
of paper.
your funds, I can easily transfer your funds out from your account into my account. That's all I need, right? So the attack vector in security, it sort of shifts from the wallet to this piece of paper, and by the way, like, you would be surprised, people actually like have these private keys or these seed phrases written on a piece of paper, which is, for some people, it's like millions of dollars lying on a piece of paper, which if someone gets access to that, they'll be able to make an irreversible transaction through it to their account. And the actual owner of those assets will never be able to get those cryptocurrencies back. So it's a major infrastructure problem that sort of exists in Web3 today. But in our case, what we do differently is, because we never store the private keys in a single place, you don't need the seed phrase or you don't need this wallet backup in the first place. So we have completely removed seed phrase from the equation as far as the Web3 wallet is concerned. So that's the second big problem we solved, because that was both a user experience nightmare and a security nightmare in the industry. And lastly, what we solved was crypto inheritance. So think of it like this. I mean, for all of the other asset classes that exist today, real estate, stocks, bonds, cash, the government and the banks are responsible for a specific country to help transfer the assets from the person who, God forbid, died to the person who is going to be the receiver of those assets
Or a
eventually.
legal owner.
The legal owner, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you think in terms of cryptocurrencies and digital assets, well, that's not possible today, because you cannot give your private keys to the person who is going to be the next in line. Because what if the relationship between you and him or her changes and they run away with the funds? Because in Web3 you can't do a reversible transaction, right? And you can also not prove to the court that okay, he or she was the person who took your assets. So you cannot give your private keys while you're alive to the person. And for obvious reasons, you cannot give your private keys after you're dead, because you're already dead. So the question is then, how do you transfer these private keys? How do you transfer it? When do you transfer it? And how do you make sure that the privacy and the control of the assets are maintained throughout? So very fundamental problem, that sort of needs to solve for this asset class to actually succeed. So that's something we are also solving in the process. It's still in the design phase, but we'll be out with the solution in the next 2 to 3 months. So these are basically we want to enable people to have a secure enough infrastructure wherein they don't need to think too much about the security of the assets. They have the security layer by default, and then they are able to leverage all of the different blockchain use cases securely, which we sort of built on top of this. So, the DeFi stuff, NFT stuff, and anything that sort of Web3 enables can be sort of securely managed through our platform going forward. So that's what our goal is there, to be honest.
So, Rohan, next question. What kind of assets can you store in Cypherock? And is it compatible with dApps?
Right. Good question. So right now we support the major ones, which is we have Bitcoin, we have the other Bitcoin folks like Dash, Dogecoin, and the usual Bitcoin folks that exist. We also support Ethereum, based ERC20 tokens. So USDC, USDT, all of the different tokens that exist on the Ethereum network. We just got live with Near protocol support as well yesterday. So that is also live on our product right now. We support at this point more than 4,000 different coins and tokens. And we are in the process of supporting more as we speak. So, you will be, we will be notifying our users and followers in the coming days about the other chains. But roadmap wise, we want to support the most common ones existing today. So Solana, Polygon, and the other EVM chains will be done in the next couple of weeks and will be out to the users of our platform. dApp wise, we already are in the process of integrating Wallet Connect, which will allow you to sort of connect with more than 80% of the dApps in the entire Ethereum and Solana ecosystem. So that will also be out in the next couple of weeks, which will make us more sort of extensible and composable with the other dApps out there in the industry today.
Okay. One more thing. How is Cypherock different compared to other hardware wallets in the market?
Yeah. So as I said, like the three core problems that we solve, that is sort of existing in all of the wallets globally. So we are not trying to build something just for India. We want to build things in India, but globally. That's how we want to see it. I mean, if you see traditionally, India has always sort of been at the catching end of the technology waves, starting with the earlier applications of, internet. Like it was always like Amazon was built in 1992 and Flipkart got built in 2006, 2008. And I won't blame India for that, because India didn't have that sort of internet penetration before to support innovations like that. But that has sort of changed now in the last 5 years. And because blockchain sort of enables this new version of the internet, India right now sort of is able to compete with the West in real time. We now know what the West is working on in real time and actually build global first products from India. And that's how you see, products like or protocols like Polygon being sort of, one of the core frontiers of the Indian innovation globally, right? So that's how the narrative I think has changed in the last 5 years, and that's what we want to push as well. That we want to build global products. So in order to build global products, you need to be like building or solving problems that are globally existing today, and which I pointed out. The wallets are not that secure. Secondly, you have the seed phrase problem with every sort of wallet out there in the world today. Third, inheritance. Again, crypto inheritance is not something which is solved by any wallet today. Fourth, what we are also enabling, apart from solving these fundamental problems, is basically allowing you to have a wallet aggregator. So what do I mean by that? Today, most of the users today use multiple wallets at a single point in time. So maybe
Right.
they use a MetaMask wallet for doing their, DeFi stuff or the NFT stuff.
Mm.
They might be using a Phantom wallet for doing the Solana stuff. They might be using a Ledger device separately for storing their assets in cold storage. So the thing is, like, it's very difficult for the users to track all of these different assets in different wallets. There's no sort of a wallet aggregator at this point. And so what we enable differently from other wallets is, for the first time, we allow users to basically create 4 different wallets in the same product. So what do I mean by that? You can create one. So just like how your browser allows you to store 4 different Gmail accounts to access maybe like a company account, company Gmail account, or maybe a personal account in the same browser session. That's similar to how we allow users to store 4 different wallets in the same product. So maybe you can create a wallet one which sort of stores your seed phrase of your MetaMask wallet. Wallet 2, you create it with a different pin which stores your seed phrase of your Phantom wallet. Wallet 3, you can create a Cypherock native wallet. And once you create all of these wallets inside the same product, it allows you to sort of see all of your portfolios through our single interface, our app that we provide with the hardware. So you can
Right.
actually track all of the different portfolios at a single place, which is not enabled by any other wallet in the world right now.
So
Um,
you call that as your USP,
that
or
is definitely one of our USPs, I would say, because the thing in this case is, people are not comfortable importing their seed phrases in any other wallet. But
right.
what our product enables is, somewhat extension to what we discussed, which is the last layer of security for the user, or more like a forget password button for Web3, wherein, instead of creating new wallets through Cypherock, what you can do is take the seed phrase of your MetaMask and store it inside that. So instead of storing your seed phrase of your MetaMask on a piece of paper, you're using the Cypherock product to securely back up your seed phrase, and then obviously eventually view the portfolio through the single interface. So that is in itself not possible with any other wallet right now. And because we are optimizing heavily on security, that everything that we do is going to be secure by default. People are willing to trust us for storing their other wallet seed phrase as well, which is not the case with other wallets. Just to add on the security aspect of things, we are already sort of audited by Key Labs. So Key Labs is the last security firm that had Ledger wallet 3 years ago. So we are already sort of audited by them. They said this is one of the most innovative wallets out there in the world today. We'll have a public report, the audit report with them out very soon in the next couple of weeks. And 4 weeks since launch, we already have like $1 million stored through our wallets, out of which $100,000 belongs to our company. So we are storing our own crypto assets through Cypherock wallets, because if we want users to trust this product to secure their own assets, we should have skin in the game, right?
Right.
So that's how much we believe that this is actually another sort of step function in increasing the security of Web3 by default.
So, Rohan, if I have to summarize top three features of Cypherock,
Right.
what would be
So the first feature, I would say, it's like your forget password button for Web3, right? So whatever wallets
Yeah.
that you use, you should use Cypherock wallet to back up all of them, because you might not know what happens to your desktop tomorrow. You might know what happens to your smartphone tomorrow. You can always rely on the Cypherock product. Be be assured that your funds are secured in some way or the other. That's the first problem that we solve. The second is we offer you all-in-one wallet portfolio management, which is not possible in any
Awesome.
other infrastructure. And last is we solve crypto inheritance by default for you. And all of these are enabled for all of the coins eventually, by the way. So it's not that we are just going to focus on one chain. We are going to be multi-chain, multi-coin, multi-tokens by default. So everything that we say we claim about a security will be applicable for all of the chains by default.
Okay. So I would want to take another question. Roadmap. What does the roadmap for Cypherlock looks like? What it
Yeah,
looks
I
like and
mean,
how
in
it's done.
terms of the good question. In terms of the roadmap, we want to enable as many crypto use cases or digital asset use cases which are sort of possible today and are going to exist tomorrow. So things like DeFi stuff, NFT stuff, integrating as many tokens as possible, whatever the user might need for him or herself. Integrating with, obviously, as you pointed out, with the different dApps ecosystem, the different exchanges that a user wants to see. And then eventually what we want to enable is, this product is more suited for Cypherock as for a retail investor. We want to enable it to sort of provide the same level of or even greater security for enterprises. So
Okay.
how do we leverage the existing security infrastructure for something like, maybe allowing users to create a multi-chain crypto native joint account? Not possible today, right? That is something which we are in the process of. It's sort of in the R&D internal in the team. That is also one of the key challenges that we intend to solve for. Is there a way that we allow users to create crypto native joint accounts? Not possible today, but that is something which we eventually will enable in the coming future.
Okay. Okay. So to sum it up with this questionnaire, I again have one more question to ask you here before I move on to the next. What again, if you can tell me, what kind of assets can you store in a Cypher?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as the chains are concerned,
Yeah.
we already support Bitcoin, the Bitcoin forks,
Yeah.
Litecoin, Dash. In terms of like, if you have a ERC20, we most likely support it already. So you can easily import out your Ethereum. We obviously support the newly merged Ethereum chain, like the Ethereum POS consensus chain. And obviously we support the ERC20s, the different ones that are enabled today. Apart from that, we support the Near protocol. So Near is one of the upcoming blockchains, completely different chain. It sort of allows you to create email-like public addresses. So if you see any other public addresses, usually is a jumbled sort of
Yeah.
characters in a string. But with Near, you can maybe create something like Meghna.near. That is, and users can
Yeah.
actually send funds directly to Meghna.near, right? So that was not, it's a very unique sort of feature which is enabled by Near protocol, and we sort of support it natively through our platform. Going forward, we are already in the process of supporting Solana and the different tokens which are going to be part of the Solana blockchain. That is already in the process. And then obviously the other EVM chains are already in the work. So we have Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, Phantom. All of these are different sort of EVM based chains, which is already in the works and will be supported by us in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Great. So Rohan, what is the current outlook of crypto market overall globally as well as in India? What do you take that?
Yeah, it's a fairly hard question, Meghna, to be honest. Things are pretty complicated. I think that just doesn't go just for cryptocurrencies. I think it goes generally for stock markets as well. I mean, people are not too sure about how the markets will sort of react or how the markets will go forward from here. But what I do know from like things which are sort of constant is the rapid innovation in the space, right? That will always sort of continue. And the reason why this will always happen is because most of the things that are being built in Web3 is sort of open source by default. And once you have things which are open source by default, you have much more exponential innovation being happening, because instead of trying to compete for the same price, people use the existing components out there and build on top of that, which is not the case with Web2, because you might find a lot of companies building the exact same thing. And the reason why that is there, because you don't have the components to share among all of those participants or stakeholders, right? But with Web3, things like are open source by default. So you usually tend to not build competing products, but once something out's there, something is proven, you sort of try to build on top of this, or maybe build a more better version on top of that. So that I think is sort of the constant in the market. As far as the India market is concerned, I don't have too much sort of viewpoints around that, because I generally tend to avoid looking at markets. That sort of gives you anxiety, and that is not a sort of a not something which should be on your mind if you're sort of trying to build in this space, right? Because you're not building out for something, for a short-term thing. Like Web3 is sort of like a big architectural change on the verge of happening, and that's why it says like crypto sort of enables this new infrastructure for the internet, and that's not going to build like in a few years. Like it will take like at least a decade to build out. And think of it like this: like you are competing with gold and the different currencies which exist in the world since the last 100 200 years, and you can't expect an asset to come and like completely overthrow that in 10 years. That's not possible, right? Like you have to take that into context while you sort of view Web3 as a space. So given what Bitcoin and other digital assets have sort of achieved in the last, I would say 12 13 years, is already remarkable in that sense. That people didn't think at first that it will sort of capture this sort of global attention that it sort of has captured now. I think I'm like more bullish than ever that it will happen eventually. It's sort of inevitable. The only question in my mind is when it happens. That's the only question to think about, and how can we sort of accelerate that process.
So you feel it's going to be a long term?
It's a long-term thing. You can't. I mean, what I'm trying to say is more like a mass adoption thing, right? I mean, today, if you see crypto or digital assets are being used by 150 200 million people, that's way far off than the 7 billion population or 8 billion population that we have globally right now, right? So it's still a long way in that sense, right? But if you see internet native people, that's I think 3 to 5 billion people, somewhere around that. So capturing 5%, I think it's a decent start. Once you have these infrastructural problems solved, that's when I think you will have more and more people jumping into the space. And usually growths are never linear in these cases. It's always exponential, right? So given that we have already covered 5%, I think the rest of the 95% won't take so long comparatively.
Great. So next question. It's all about government perception. What do you have to say on this?
Yeah, again, it's a very, very tricky question, to be honest. I mean, like for government, again, I don't have too much of a viewpoint there. It's still a volatile, like sort of environment. I don't know what sort of they are thinking about the whole space. What I could do take out from the statements that sort of they have received, they have sort of released out in the public, is that they're always going to be pro innovation. They can never be anti-innovation. And so that's, I think, one of the key points to take away is this. Everyone knows that crypto and blockchain is sort of innovation, right? You can't sort of deny that aspect of things. And so because it's pro innovation, like I don't see it sort of the government's killing it. I don't see it happening, to be honest. In terms of the taxes, again, it's questionable, why that is sort of the policy, how it is currently structured as. People are obviously asking for more favorable terms there, but we'll have to see out how that sort of plan, gets played out in the next few months and years, because that's something I personally don't have too much insight on how that is sort of structured on there. But what I've heard from my friends who sort of run crypto exchanges and others, that governments are very pro crypto at this point. There's nothing to sort of worry about in that sense that they'll go anti-crypto and any
So
preemption.
do they prefer private or enterprise blockchains or public blockchains? What do you have to
Yeah,
add on
so
this?
here's my controversial take on this. I don't personally believe too much in enterprise blockchains, to be honest. That's not something I am too much excited about. I am majorly excited about what the potentials are of public blockchains. And public by mean permissionless. Enterprise blockchains, I do believe, are more permissioned. They have some sort of use cases, but I'm still not 100% convinced about them. If there are stakeholders who are interested to use it for a specific use case, that it's great for them. But personally, I haven't been sort of a big advocate for that. Like I'm more pro for public blockchains, things which are more permissionless by default. Um, as far as the governments are concerned, I've seen them using like like the enterprise blockchains in some of the use cases that were sort of mentioned on one of the government websites, I guess. But I haven't personally played out with them, and it sort of points into the same fact that I'm not personally too much pro about enterprise blockchains. It doesn't excite me personally, to be honest. I'm more sort of interested in what the different public blockchains offer, and hence I don't have that much insight around the enterprise side of things, to be honest.
Any example you would want to share about the public blockchain or private blockchain enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, enterprises, I've heard Geo working on something. I'm not 100% sure. They definitely have an internal team, at least doing R&D around it. I've heard Hyperledger being one of the, the sort of the blockchain frameworks being used. But again, I haven't like really found too much sort of action happening with those, sort of technical frameworks so far. In terms of public blockchains, yeah, I mean that is something already. I don't think I need to tell them, like
Yeah.
people already know about them. The usual Bitcoin, Ethereum, like every sort of cryptocurrency sort of public blockchain. There are still finer lines behind the scene, like on where sort of it lies on the decentralization spectrum. People usually think that decentralization is binary, it's 0 or 1, but usually that's not the case. It's decentralization is always a spectrum. And if we talk about the most decentralized blockchain is Bitcoin by default, right?
Right.
And every other public blockchain lies more so towards centralization than decentralization. There are legitimate reasons for that as well, wherein in the early stages you want to be as fast as possible in your development process, so that once you stabilize, you can then think about decentralizing your blockchain over time. So that's usually what a strategy that most of the blockchains take today. I could see most of the blockchains going decentralized, more on the decentralized spectrum in the next 5 years. That's definitely, I think, what they are going to prioritize.
Okay. Let's move to the next. It's all about taxes. So, as we know, currently the taxes are quite high in India, and it's 30% on capital gains and 1% on TDS.
Right.
So, what is the reason for this? And will this taxes reduce in future?
Yeah, I mean, for 1% TDS, probably the reason why they're doing it is to sort of have a track of how the crypto trading is happening. I don't see any particular reason, any other reason for something like this. What might have been better if this would have been maybe like something like 0.1 or 0.01% instead of 1%, because with 1%, with every trade that you make, so like 1% of your trade volume is sort of stuck for the next complete year. And so once you reach like 13, 14, 15 trades, your 50% of your assets are already logged to be sort of recovered through the TDS process by the next year, right? Which sort of becomes like a questionable thing, if you are a day trader or if you are someone who frequently trades in the cryptocurrency markets. As far as capital gains are concerned, I think that's still relatively more straightforward. I mean, in some regards, governments are, at least in India, they are considering it more in the asset category, and because it's an asset category, it's like whatever sort of profit that you make, it's sort of similar for any other asset class because you have to pay capital gains on top of that. But what is still amusing is you can't offset it against the law. So that I am hopeful that might change because that will be more favorable for the users or for like the citizens of the country.
People are not happy, right?
Yeah, they obviously they're not happy. You have the beer market that obviously that's not helping, and at the same time you have the taxes, which sort of not helping at the same time. While in the beer market, yeah, I mean they are unhappy and to some extent for the right reasons. So I'm hopeful that the government sort of takes steps in the right directions, which sort of promotes the usage or the speculation or the trading of these assets going forward.
Which are your favorite cryptocurrencies and why?
Yeah, I mean, I am never like a specific coin like maximalist or someone who promotes a certain coin. I am more like a decentralization maximalist. So whatever sort of promotes decentralization by default, that's something which is very interesting to me. So even in our case, if you see what our product is, once we ship out the product to the users, even we can't hack you. So that's the ideology that we sort of want to build around the product, and that's what one of our core values is. If you ask from that perspective, I think Bitcoin might be the one because, as I said, like Bitcoin is the most decentralized coin at this point. So yeah, if I had to choose one, that would be that would be the one.
Okay. So, which are one more question? It's all about Web3 companies, Indian Web3 companies. Which are some of the most interesting Web3 companies that you have been knowing?
Yeah. So if we talk about India, GoSats are doing good. I know the founder personally. They're, I think, building the loyalty and the cashback programs on Bitcoin. So whatever purchases that you do through Swiggy, Zomato, or the other sort of platforms that they have sort of partnered with, you get cashback in Bitcoins, which I think is a great way to onboard new users into Web3 and crypto. Um, I also know the Coinex guys, so they are, I think, helping users file taxes around cryptocurrencies more efficiently in India. Globally, obviously, there are like a bunch of projects doing interesting work. So there's one product which I personally, sort of use these days is something called as Farcaster. So Farcaster is essentially like a sufficiently decentralized social network. So very similar to Twitter, but I mean, Twitter is completely centralized. There are not a lot of things that you can build on top of that. Then they sort of prevent you from building on top of that. They can censor things. Farcaster, on the other hand, is sort of more decentralized, or I would say sufficiently decentralized. Very similar to how Twitter works,
Yeah.
but a very vibrant community of people in there. And people are actually building on top of Farcaster. So that's something which I am personally sort of very bullish about, or sort of spending a lot of my time there, which is a core like Web3 product that I'm super sort of bullish about.
Any interest?
Apart from the
Okay.
usual public blockchains.
Okay. Any interesting developments other than this which you have seen across in India?
Yeah, I think like there are different like projects doing I think amazing work. So you can have projects that we sort of usually talk with. I think Capix is one doing great work. Then you have project. I mean, obviously the exchanges are sort of enabling users to get exposure to the usual cryptocurrencies in general. In India, I would still say like there are people who are building in India, but because of the uncertainty around government
Yeah.
regulations, they sort of tend to shift to either Dubai or Singapore.
Okay.
That is what I'm sort of seeing these days happening quite frequently. So I'm not sure whether you would like to call them Indian projects anymore. That's still sort of questionable at this point. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of projects. It's just that I'm more sort of focused because we are still in the development phase, so we sort of try to be mindful about our like how do we enable people to
Yeah.
get more and more people into the Web3 and the blockchain space. But yeah, I think like it is actually a vibrant community in India. What deters them further is obviously like the government regulations, because we don't have a clear enough regulation. So there are obviously still a lot of developers who are sort of building natively in the space, but
Right.
it still deters a lot of developers to not jump into the space, because they might say, that okay, what I'm building today, is that going to be legal tomorrow? Or what if the parents see, crypto being touted
True.
illegal or in the gray zone? So they will be like, don't work in this space. It's not the right way. So it becomes questionable. So you need like, you need regulations to be clear on what is illegal and what is not,
Le-
right? For people to be safe and, have that sort of peace of mind, and what they are doing is not wrong or whatever.
Right. So, Rohan, any YouTubers or social influencers whom we want to name, social media influencers who are really good onto the crypto space?
Yeah, I think Anthony Pompliano is definitely like one of the good ones out there. He does cover Bitcoin and the
Yeah.
public blockchains for that matter. I personally am not too involved, again, because I'm sort of building out the product. I'm not too involved on the influencer space. I tend to consume my content more on Twitter and Farcaster, as I said,
Yeah.
and Reddit. So these are typically the three social platforms which are sort of the most active, and most active both in terms of both bull market and the bear markets. Usually LinkedIn, Facebook, and these platforms usually more prop up during bull markets. But it's when it's in the bear markets when you realize what are the platforms where things are actually happening, and the action where I find most value is in Twitter, Farcaster, and Reddit. So Twitter, again, like bunch of people. So we have, Furkan from Third Web. I follow him, great content around, Web3. Um, Obviously, the folks at Farcaster, who sort of are building this platform. But yeah, I mean, bunch of, so like, think of it like this, like in crypto, like most of the people sort of are pseudonymous. So you don't know who those people are, but
Right.
the viewpoints are, fairly original, right? So I might not know the person behind the pseudonym, but what he's posting is actually quite knowledgeable in that sense. So there's this Twitter account called as Wallet Guard. Again, I don't know the person behind that, but the kind of content that he sort of posts around Web3 security is even like something which I learn from every day. Um, so yeah, a bunch of great content on these platforms, I would say. Not too big of a fan of YouTube or like the video content myself, to be honest.
Right. So, I think I'm done with some questions. Harsh, sir, you would want to add some things?
Yes, yes. I have two questions, Rohan. That was a lovely interview that given a lot of insights, and specifically for the Indian market, it is very good. I have a question as a software developer, since you're looking at the software part of the hardware of your company. How does one, there are millions of software developers and people wanting to get into blockchain, but they have no clue because it's such a nascent. What do you suggest? How should one go about if he's planning to if he has no clue about blockchain or crypto, or if he has clue, how does one go about entering into the blockchain industry as a developer or whatever?
Industry.
Right, great question. I think this is something which is sort of, evident. Like people are wanting to get in the space, they don't have the right framework. And so we actually found this as a problem ourselves, because there are some team members who got onboarded to our company, but those were not crypto native people or didn't know crypto about beforehand. So what we thought was there needs to be like a knowledge base around this. And so what we end up doing is we actually created like a step-by-step knowledge base internally for the company, wherein you are someone who don't know anything about crypto, you are not technical, you just are a good thinker, right? So we created this like step by step articles. We sort of compiled all of them so that people can actually get onboarded to the crypto ecosystem through that knowledge base, which I would be happy to share as well. That we sort of, once we realize that okay, this is not something which is a problem to just us, that is sort of, people are looking for resources like these globally and particularly in India, we decided to open source that. So I'll sort of post this out. I'll send it across to you, Meghna. You can maybe add it to the show notes
Yeah. Yeah.
after the call. So yeah, I mean, because one of the key things we realized early on was once people are interested or curious about crypto, one of the first realizations that they have is not how crypto works, but actually how money works. Because most of the people never actually think about how money works, right? Because that is never taught in a school. And so once they have that realization that, okay, oh, this is how, governments print money, or this is how, the economy works, or this is how why US dollar is the reserve currency of of the world. Those are some of the questions. When they prop up, they get more curious, and that's how that sort of becomes the wedge or the entry point into cryptocurrencies, and then that's when they go deeper into the space. So I think that sort of this question is more I think valid for both technical devs as well as non-technical people. And yeah, I would be happy to share my notes on this in the show.
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you. What about the crypto or blockchain market industry, as in terms of jobs, or someone wants to be an entrepreneur, or someone wants to find job? If you can give a perspective, over the next 2 to 3 years, about whether
Right,
they, how should a person decide whether blockchain is a right industry for them to enter into? Right? How big is the space? Your perspective, like,
right. I mean, so my perspective is quite fairly simple, to be honest. If you consider gold as an asset class, globally gold is valued at about at least $7 trillion. So if even if everything else doesn't work in the crypto space, the crypto, I believe, is going to at least capture this aspect of things. And that is a big enough market itself. Because if you see, sort of globally, um, there's this narrative around replacing or being like a more better reserve currency, or like more a global currency. That is one narrative that crypto is sort of interested in or eyeing for. There's another narrative around having decentralized computing as well, which is where Ethereum is operating on, and the other sort of chains are operating on. And so what I feel is, because this sort of becomes a wedge uh, to sort of replace internet in some sense, you can think of it as like the potential market to be as big as the companies sort of that exist on the internet, right? That I would say would be like the the best way to sort of see how big the market would eventually be, right? And the thing is, there's never a market bigger than money market
right?
in the world, right? And so crypto is sort of tapping into that, which was never possible before. And so if you are someone who thinks short term, then obviously this might not be like a good industry for you. Usually things are very fast in this industry, but they're still then very long term. Because in Web3, think of it like this: you have even though things are closed source, you are more like things are more smaller. You can provide value over small, shorter things. But with Web3, the thing is, most of the things are executed on the smart contract layer, and because it's public, it is almost like you are building a rocket. Like, think of it like this: before a rocket gets actually sent to the space, you have to make sure it's perfect before that goes into the space, because even one bug inside that might result in the rocket exploding in midair, right? So it's very similar to how blockchain development also works, that you need to be 100% sure that whatever code you have written, it's secure by default. If it's not, and if it's published to the blockchain, anyone can sort of like hack that if that's a buggy smart contract. So things are usually long term in that sense, even though iteration cycles are very fast. But if you actually have to make a career out of this, or sort of create a big enough impact, you have to make up your mind that you are going to stay in this space for the long term. And most of the people that I have found or have seen is, they enter the space in the bull market, but as and when the bear market hits, they get out of the space.
Yeah.
And usually the most of the value never gets created in the bull market. It always gets created in the bear market, right?
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
sort of the counterintuitive argument, or more like an ironic statement that people don't realize, or at least most of the people don't realize in the space.
Yes.
So I think the number one advice would be to think about why you want to enter this space, and actually enter it for the right reasons, and not to make quick bucks and just leave the space eventually.
What about the job market in blockchain?
Do you have
Yeah,
any?
I think like I don't think I need to tell you guys this, like, because
Exactly.
you guys are already like sort of
Exactly.
are more into the space. It's so much difficult to find the best devs in the space because they are always in demand. And one other thing that we have found are there's what we have personally found is like the best of the devs, they end up starting their own protocols in the space.
Yes.
So it becomes ever more difficult to find great talent. And so there's always going to be a shortage of talent in the space. We would want people to sort of shift as much as possible from the Web2 space to building the core infrastructure in the Web3 space, because as I said, this is the sort of a potentially new internet, and it doesn't get built by a few companies or protocol. You need like a lot of devs to actually rebuild the whole infrastructure.
Makes sense. What about the languages? What language are someone should study?
What
Software
kind of
languages.
software languages?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so um, you should obviously be great at first in, I would say, low level stuff. So low level, by what I mean by that is, C, C++, Rust. These low level languages actually, sort of propels you to think more deeply and think, because things in higher level languages like JavaScript and others, things usually get a little more abstracted away, which is fine for certain applications. But if you talk specifically about core blockchain development, or if you're trying to, let's assume, program your own blockchain, you want things to be as efficient as possible, and that is not possible to the high level languages. You need to be aware about the optimizations which are possible through low level languages. And so if you are interested in, maybe let's assume, building your own blockchain and stuff, you should be eyeing for improving yourselves in C, C++, Rust, and these sort of low level languages. If you don't want to touch base on that, maybe you just want to focus your career more around smart contract development and things like that, you should obviously focus more on Solidity, Rust. There are some of the other chains which are more, I would say, language agnostic these days. So they're still fairly open, but since Ethereum has sort of the most mind share of the developers right now, then obviously Solidity becomes one. So I mean, I wouldn't say, like, if you are a developer today, I wouldn't recommend someone to just go straight into Solidity. That might be too much for them. It's better to sort of clear your basics out through some of the more well documented languages, or more like languages which have a good global support, which would mean languages like C, C++, JavaScript. And once you get a good hold of that, then you are free to explore Solidity, Rust, and the more sort of crypto and blockchain native languages after that.
Got it. Got it. All right. So I think this is it. There was a good, comprehensive interview which gives a brief about all your company, what Cypherock is doing, how is it different than other hardware wallets. Specifically in India, what is the market, and what are the Indians doing when it comes to Web3 space, and that they're mostly doing. A lot of these guys are doing it, but out of Dubai or Singapore because of the regulations or whatever. And
Yeah,
yeah, the job market and everything. It was a well good interview. Thanks a
yeah.
lot, Rohanji. Meghnaji, would you
Thank
like to
you.
say something? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting, Ronji, that we could get the features of Cypherock, the kind of you share that how it gets divided. That's very important right now, how it is going to be different from other wallets. That was some value added points which I found very interesting. So thank you for this session. Yeah, thank you for this.
Likewise, Meghna,
Yeah.
thanks for having me. Just to add to the last point, we are sort of already, shipping globally. We are also shipping in India. One of the key differentiating factors for us compared to other wallets is we are local, right? So someone does not need to chase a foreign company to get their wallets. You can actually get it local in India. You get local customer support with us because we are Indian. So that becomes an added advantage in terms of the time zones we are able to offer you. And you obviously don't have a customs issue, which usually you face in products if you are sort of importing
Yeah.
something into the India, into the India subcontinent. So those are, I would say, some of the benefits you would sort of receive naturally from us compared to like other wallets, apart from the differentiating features that we offer today compared to other wallets.
Where is this available in terms of Amazon, or is
No,
you have a website?
great question. So we didn't purposefully list on Amazon and Flipkart, because the reason why we don't do that is because people will then start shipping out fake Cypherock wallets, which might
Yeah.
be detrimental to our brand, and
Makes sense.
the users might get hacked, in the future. So we only sort of ship it through our website these days. You can order it on the website. We are now opening up ourselves to authorized distributors and resellers. So we are already live with Etherbit. They are the only authorized wallet sellers in India of other wallets. So we are already live with them. We are going live with other authorized dealers as we speak, nationally as well. So if you guys are interested, we can onboard you as, distributor resellers as well. That would
Yes, that'll be great.
Yes.
And have it in our institutes. Yes.
right. That would be
Can you give the website address where
Yeah.
you can go and
It's yeah, sure. It's cypherock.com, CYPHEROCK.com. So Cypherock with a single R. Again, I'll share the link with Meghna ji.
Yes.
She can
Yeah,
put
yeah,
it
sure.
on the show notes.
amazing. All right, Rohan. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
We'll catch
Rohan.
up soon.
Thanks for
Take
having
care.
me, guys. It
Thanks,
was
Rohan.
a pleasure
Thanks.
Thank you.
speaking with you guys. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.